Okay, so we will start today's session in the usual manner by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we will continue with the reading from the book, The Great Disciples of the Buddha, and we were studying how in the early days when Maha Moggallāna, he and Venerable Sariputta, they were looking for a teacher, and then they had come under, at that time, a famous teacher by the name of Sanjaya. And after they learned with him for a while, stayed with him for a while, then they realized, there was more to be learned. So they left Sanjaya, they went back to their hometown, and then they, by chance, met with Venerable Asaji, who was one of the earlier disciples of the Buddha at that time. And so what happened was they were very convinced with their encounter with Venerable Asaji that the Buddha had found the truth, the path to the end of suffering. And so they were very excited. They wanted to go and study, follow, learn under the Buddha, and they invited Sanjaya to join them. But Sanjaya said no. He already had a lot of disciples. He wasn't going to join their quest. And what happened, actually, half of Sanjaya's disciples actually turned up, followed Venerable Sariputta and Maha Moggallāna to go to see the Buddha. So that was quite an interesting encounter. So today we're going to look at the chapter called The Struggle for Realization of the Teaching. So now the two friends, Venerable Sariputta and Maha Moggallāna, so before they were ordained, their names were Upatissa and Kolita. And they at the head of 250 fellow ascetics. So they both had students, and of course, the students mainly from Sanjaya's side who, wanted to follow them, approached the bamboo grove. So at that time, the Buddha was residing with a number of disciples already in bamboo grove. And sometimes we read in the suttas, Veluvana in Rajagaha. So it's a park, a grove with plenty of bamboo. Yeah, and the Buddha was residing there and he was teaching there. And there the Buddha was teaching the Dhamma to his monks. And when he saw the two friends approaching, he announced, "Dear monks, they are coming. The two friends, Kolita and Upatissa. They will be my chief disciples, a blessed pair." So the Buddha already knew. Yeah. And having arrived, the whole company respectfully saluted the Buddha, raised their joined palms to the forehead and bowed at his feet. Then the two friends spoke. "May we be permitted, Lord, to obtain under the Blessed One the going forth and the full admission." So just asking to be ordained into the Sangha. And then the Blessed One responded, "Come, monks, well proclaimed is the Dhamma. Live now the holy life for making an end of suffering. These brief words serve to bestow ordination on 2 friends and their following. So in the earlier days when the Buddha was ordaining disciples, it was very simple, not a lot of ceremony. It was just merely, okay, come and join the Sangha, and that was it. But later on, there was some customs, like they had to go and find a bowl and a robe and things like that. So in the early days, in the earlier years after the Buddha gained enlightenment, a lot of things were simpler, and also because the order of the Sangha was smaller, was fewer. But as it grew, then the Buddha realized the need to have certain rules, and that's how the rules for the monks came to be, the Vinaya, etc. And then the nuns after that as well. So that was a little bit later, yeah. So here you can see that in the early parts, it's very simple. And from that point on, the texts refer to Upatissa by the name Sariputta, the son of Sari. So when we were studying about the story of Sariputta, we remembered that his mother was named Sari. And so Putta means son, yeah. So the son of Sari, Sariputta. So it was kind of simple name after the name of his mother. And to Kolita as Maha Moggallāna, Moggallana the Great, to distinguish him from others of the same Brahmanic clan, such as Ganaka Moggallana and Gopika Moggallana. So when we read, for example, Majjhima Nikaya, we see a number of Ganaka Moggallana appears there. So Moggallana at the time was quite, I wouldn't say a common name, but it was a name that was used fairly often. So many times, usually there's like for example, Ganaka Moggallana, Gopika Moggallana, so that it's a way to distinguish one from the other. And he was Maha Moggallana. Maha means great. Yeah, Maha, great, yeah. So after all of them had obtained ordination, that is Sariputta, Maha Moggallana, and all the disciples that came together with them, so they all got ordained. The Buddha addressed the 250 disciples and explained to them the teaching in such a way that before long they attained to the first stage of emancipation, stream entry. And in due course, all became arahats except Sariputta and Moggallana. So that was quite interesting, how the process and their understanding was very quick. But also bear in mind that they had been practicing a form of asceticism, and they were studying under Sanjaya for many years prior to meeting the Buddha. Except for Sariputta and Moggallana. So these two went into solitude in separate places to continue their striving for the highest goal. Sariputta remained in the vicinity of Rajagaha and went to meditate in a cave called the Boar's Den. So still in the same city, but just in a cave. And from there, he walked to the city. So he walked from the cave to Rajagaha for his alms, which often gave him the opportunity to listen to the Buddha's discourse. What he heard from the master, he independently worked over in his own mind, and he methodically penetrated to clear understanding of the fundamental nature of phenomena. And he needed 14 days to reach arahatship, the utter destruction of all cankers. And so the process of these 14 days is explained in detail in 111, Majjhima Nikaya 111, yeah, where he explained, went through the process of going through the jhanas, one by one. Okay. Moggallāna, however, for reasons not specified in the text, resorted to a forest near the village of Kalvalaputta in Magadha. So still in Magadha, the country of Magadha. Rajgah is a city in the whole country of Magadha. So still in the country of Magadha, but a little bit further to a forest. And with great zeal, he meditated there while sitting or walking up and down, but despite his determination, he was often overcome by sleepiness. And though he struggled to keep his body erect and his head upright, he kept on drooping and nodding. And there were times when he could keep his eyes open only by sheer force of will. The tropical heat, the strain of his long years of a wandering life, and the inner tensions he had gone through all bore down on him at once. And thus, at the very end of his quest, his body reacted by fatigue. So actually, his body was tired. But the awakened one, the Buddha, with a great teacher's solicitude for his disciples, did not lose sight of him. With his supernormal vision, he perceived the difficulties of the new monk, of Maha Moggallāna, and by psychic power, he appeared before him. When Moggallāna saw the master standing before him, a good part of his fatigue had already vanished. Now the awakened one asked him, "Are you nodding?" That means drooping, falling asleep. "Are you nodding, Moggallāna? Are you nodding?" "Yes, Lord." "Well then, Moggallāna, at whatever thought drowsiness descends upon you, you should not give attention to that thought or dwell on it." Okay, so the drowsiness or the dullness or the sloth and torpor is one of the 5 hindrances. So what the Buddha is really saying is, like what we read from the text as well, that we don't give attention to the hindrance. Whichever of the 5 hindrances arise, we don't feed it. We don't give attention to it. Okay, so this is what the Buddha is trying to say. Don't give attention to that thought. Whatever thought that brings that drowsiness, whatever mental object that brings that drowsiness, don't dwell on it, or don't dwell on the drowsiness itself. Don't dwell on the thought, don't dwell on the drowsiness itself. And by doing so, it is possible that your drowsiness will vanish, because when we are giving attention to the hindrance itself, the hindrance gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But if we don't pay attention to it, pay attention to our 6 R's and pay attention to the object of meditation that we're doing, then Buddha is saying it is possible that your drowsiness will vanish. But if by doing so drowsiness does not vanish, then you should reflect upon the teaching as you have heard it and learn it. You should ponder over it and examine it closely in your mind. So basically, whatever that we've studied about the Dhamma, we should examine it closely. Yeah. The easiest way is just to apply the 6 R's, go back to the object of meditation, because by doing so, we are already putting in right effort into play, and then bringing mindfulness into our object of meditation, whether it's loving kindness or compassion or whatever it is that we're doing. And that itself is thinking and applying our thought into the teaching. Then by doing so, it is possible that your drowsiness will vanish. But if by doing so, drowsiness does not vanish, then you should repeat in full detail the teaching as you have heard it and learned it. So whatever teaching that we have heard or remembered or memorized, we can repeat it. Yeah, so some have some teaching, some suggested method could be reciting the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddha Vijja Charana Sampanna. And you don't have to recite it in Pali, you can recite it in English or whatever language that suits you. The most important is to understand as we are reciting the 9 qualities of the Buddha, we are going through the qualities of the Buddha themselves. And you can recite one way and backwards is one of the suggested practices. And in that way, the drowsiness can vanish. Or you can remind yourself, what are the 7 factors of enlightenment? Or you can remind yourself, what are the, 12 stages of dependent origination? Or you can recite what you remember from the Chachaka Sutta, anything of your choice, whatever that you could remember. Yeah. But if by doing so drowsiness does not vanish, then you should pull both earlobes and rub your limbs with your hands. So pull these earlobes. Pull, and some suggestion is also gently rub the earlobes. So you can pull and gently rub the earlobes and rub your limbs with your hands. Okay, so that is one way. But if by doing so drowsiness does not vanish, then you should get up from your seat, and after washing your eyes with water or washing your face, you should look around in all directions and upwards to the stars and constellation. This is assuming at night, when you're drowsy, look up to the sky. Okay. But if by doing so actually what the Buddha is giving is a step-by-step progression. So if you've done this, hopefully the drowsiness will go away. But if it doesn't go away, this is the next step you can try. And if this next step doesn't go away, doesn't solve your drowsiness, then there's another step, then there's another step. So each step that the Buddha is giving is meant to help overcome the drowsiness. So we can also use this. Usually we don't need to get until the end. If we get until the end, it's quite likely that actually the body actually needs proper rest, okay? So here it's saying, okay, if pulling and rubbing the earlobes and rubbing our limbs doesn't work, then get up, wash your face, and look at all directions. Yeah, look at up, down, right, left, yeah, sideways, and upwards to the sky, okay? But if by so doing drowsiness does not vanish, then you should give attention to the perception of light, to the perception of day. As by day, so by night. As by night, so by day. Thus, with your mind clear and unclouded, you should cultivate a mind that is full of brightness. So just being aware, basically, being aware that during the day, you're very clear, your mind is clear. Yep. This is during the day, bright light during the day. When it is at night, perceive it as this is nighttime, and the mind is at all times clear of that perception of light, or if it is at night, still clear The mind is clear, but it is not daylight. There's no daylight. Okay. But if by doing so drowsiness does not vanish, then with your senses turned inward and your mind not straying outward, you should walk up and down, being aware of going to and fro. So this is basically doing the walking meditation. So when we are doing the walking meditation, we should not allow our senses to go outwards, bringing our senses inwards to our mind and body, and just being fully aware. We don't have to do like the slow, very slow motion kind of walking. That's not necessary. Just walking at a normal pace, but being fully aware that one foot is placed before the other foot, and then placed before the other foot, and before the other foot. And the distance shouldn't need to be very far, maybe about 20 to 30 steps or so, roughly, in a straight line. Mindfully turning around, mindfully, and then walking again. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay? And being fully aware of that movement. Then by doing so, it is possible that your drowsiness will vanish. But if by doing so drowsiness does not vanish, you may mindfully and clearly aware. So what the Buddha gave is really a whole bunch of steps of what we can do when we are encountering sloth and torpor. Many possible ways so that the sloth and torpor goes away. But he's also saying, if after doing all this, the drowsiness does not vanish, you may mindfully and clearly aware. Lie down, lion-like. So it's like, if in some temples we visit, you see what's called like reclining Buddha. So he is lying on his right side, placing foot on foot. So you will see the statue of the Buddha where the left foot is right on top of the right foot. And keeping in mind the thought of rising. So and this is quite difficult, especially if the drowsiness is still there. You have to be very clear, very, very mindful, and keeping that mindfulness, that clarity, while lying on one side. And keeping in mind the thought of, okay, I let the body rest, but when I'm ready, I will get up. So, and on awakening, you should quickly get up, thinking I must not indulge in the comfort of resting and reclining, in the pleasure of sleep. Thus, Moggallāna, should you train yourself. Here, the Buddha gives Moggallāna a graded sequence of advice on how to overcome drowsiness. The first and best advice is not to pay attention to the thought causing or preceding the state of drowsiness. This, however, is the most difficult method. And if one does not succeed with it, one may summon some energizing thoughts, or one may reflect upon the excellence of the teaching or recite parts of it by heart. So here it's saying these are mental remedies. So you're reciting in your mind, you're reciting from your heart. But if these mental remedies do not help, one should turn to bodily activities, such as, for instance, pulling one's ears, shaking the body, activating the circulation by rubbing one's limbs, refreshing one's eyes with cold water, and at night, looking at the grandeur of the starry sky. This may make one forget one's petty drowsiness. And if these measures are of no avail, then one may try to arouse an inner vision of light, suffusing the entire mind with luminosity. And with this self-radiant mind, one will then be able to leave behind, like a Brahma deity, the whole realms of days and nights as perceived by the senses. And this line of advice suggests that Moggallāna had experienced such states before. So most likely, what's saying here, most likely when Moggallāna was studying, either under Sanjaya or when he was practicing those many years of asceticism, that he might know how to arouse this inner vision of light inside. And that's why the Buddha suggested this, because the Buddha knew that Moggallāna would have experienced something like that. So he would have known it. Okay. And this perception of light is mentioned in the text as one of the 4 ways of developing samadhi and as leading to knowledge and vision. Excuse me. And if this method too does not help, one should walk up and down mindfully, and thus by resorting to bodily movement, try to get rid of fatigue. If, however, none of these 7 devices proves helpful, one may just lie down and rest for a short while. But as soon as one feels refreshed, one should quickly get up without allowing drowsiness to return. The Buddha's instruction on that occasion, however, did not stop, but continued as follows. Further, Moggallāna, you should train yourself in this way. You should think. When calling at families on the alms round, I shall not be given to pride. So this is quite important instruction that the Buddha gave. Of course, he gave this instruction to Moggallāna, but actually it's also meant for all practicing monks who goes on alms round. So that it's a kind of practice to continue the practice of humility when receiving food, that they don't have this sense of, wow, I am a practicing monk, so I should get food. People should give me food. There's a sense of pride in that. So the Buddha is telling Moggallāna to train like this. I shall not be given to pride. Thus should you train yourself. For in families, it may happen that people are busy with work and may not notice that a monk has come. So the practice those days when the monks go on alms is they appear at the doorstep of a house, and they stand at the doorstep for a short period of time just to see if they get noticed and whether maybe the family wants to offer alms. But if there is no response from the family, then they should move on to the next house. So what the Buddha is saying is that sometimes the families, the people could be busy and they may not notice you. And then a monk, if given to pride, may think, who, I wonder, has estranged me from this family? These people seem to be displeased with me. Thus, by not receiving an offering from them, he is perturbed. And being perturbed, he becomes excited. And being excited, he loses self-control. And if he is uncontrolled, his mind will be far from finding concentration. So this is interesting. At every moment, even at alms round, what the Buddha is saying is, don't allow even the slightest notion of pride or ego to creep in. And in this case, it is a very subtle way for pride to creep in, because it's as simple as thinking, maybe somebody in the family doesn't like it, doesn't like me coming on alms round. I wonder who could it be? And the moment that thought arises, I wonder who could be not happy with me coming for alms round. Very quickly, it turns into a story very quickly. And unless we have very sharp mindfulness and be able to catch it, yeah, be able to catch it and go, whoops, there goes my mind again, starting to think, see from that conversation that the mind has, who could possibly be displeased with me, the fact that we think displeased with me, that is the main issue that comes up. The other day I was having a chat with a friend and I forgot, I think I have it in my phone. So there's a TED talk by Dr. Jill Taylor. Actually, don't quote me, but if anyone's interested, I'll find the book name again, where quite famous, and she appeared on TED Talk, first explaining that a couple of years ago she had a stroke, and the stroke rendered her left brain non-functional, or parts of the left brain non-functional, and it took her many years, but then she got a lot better. And so she got very fascinated with how the left brain and right brain, what are the different functions. I haven't started the book. My friend is halfway through the book. And it's very interesting how she said, different parts of the brain are responsible for different things. Okay. And this one I just quote from, don't quote me because I haven't read the book. I put it on my wish list, but I haven't started. But you can go and watch a TED Talk. But what I understand was that she said there's a part of the brain that, let's say, for example, very simple example, we wake up in the morning and we start thinking, okay, so those who have families will understand. They're like, oh, okay, what should I make for lunch? Those who have kids will probably, have I packed the lunch box? What am I going to make for dinner? So all these thoughts come into play, right? What should I be cooking? Have I done this? That. So that part of the brain that's responsible. There's a certain part of the brain that does that, the planning type, and sometimes get anxious as well when, I haven't done this, I haven't done that, okay. Then there's a part of the brain that is like triggered by something somebody said. Okay, so it could be something somebody said to us yesterday, just this morning, last week, and for some reason keeps popping back in our brain, in our mind. And so she's saying, yes, there's another part of the brain that does that pops into it and go, oh, that person said something to me. What did they mean? Are they displeased with me? Why? Why are they doing that to me? And then it keeps coming back. And she has a very, I find it quite interesting way of reminding ourselves when things like that happen. She asks us to label these parts of the brain. So the part that gets activated by, or sometimes gets anxious by, oh, I forgot to plan dinner for the family, or oh, I forgot to pay that bill, or oh, whatever. We can call it a name. For example, Peter, or whatever you fancy. And then the part of the brain that gets triggered somehow, mind objects, right? That come in and reminds us, oh, yesterday, so-and-so said that to me. I didn't like it very much. Now, why did it say that? What was the reason behind it? Do they have some motive? What are they trying to do to me? And you see the story goes, so she's saying, name that part of the brain, give it a name. like Lucy or something like that. So it's just a different way of reminding ourselves, oh, there's Lucy again. So when we catch Lucy in action, the moment we catch Lucy in action, we go, 6 hours, never mind Lucy. Never mind Lucy, let Lucy go, relax, smile, come back to whatever we're doing at that point or our object of meditation. If we are anxious, oh, there's Peter going off tangent again, 6 hours coming back. So I found that quite interesting. I haven't got to the book yet. I only watched the first couple of minutes of her TED Talk, and in her TED Talk, very interesting. It was really funny because last month I attended a work thingy and we invited a speaker and she showed us the TED Talk. I only saw the first 5 minutes, but she actually brought an actual brain to the TED Talk. Just to explain, how a human brain works. So I thought that was quite interesting. Sorry, I digressed a little bit, but yeah. If anyone's interested, I'll try and find out her name and her TED Talk for you. So where were we? Okay, so about the alms, yeah. So thus, by not receiving an offering from them, oh yeah, so we talked that. Further, Moggallāna, you should train yourself in this way. I shall not speak contentious talk. Thus, you should train yourself. If there is contentious talk, there is sure to be much wordiness. With much wordiness, there will be excitement. One who is excited will lose control. And if he is uncontrolled, his mind will be far from finding concentration. So basically what the Buddha is saying is, try not to get distracted too much with all these things. But when we see ourselves getting distracted, we should just siksara, come back. Really. And here the Buddha points out 2 kinds of behavior that lead to excitement and restlessness. In the first case, the monk is proud of his status and counts on respect from the laity. But if the lay people pay more attention to their own business than to him, he becomes perturbed and falls away from concentration. And in the other case, if he takes intellectual delight in discussions, becomes aroused by differences of opinion, and finds pleasure in defeating others in debate. By all this, his mental energy is diverted into futile and unprofitable channels, meaning his mental energy is no longer into the training or into the right effort, continuously keeping in mind any form of distractions or hindrances that come, and then just practicing the 6 hours. And if one cannot keep one's senses under control or easily allows one's mind to become excited or diverted, one grows slack and careless in the practice and thus cannot find the unification of mind and inner peace to be obtained in meditation. And after the Buddha had given him these instructions on the overcoming of drowsiness and the avoidance of excitement, Moggallāna asked the following question. In what way, Lord, can it be briefly explained how a monk becomes liberated by the elimination of craving? How he becomes one who has reached the final end, the final security from bondage, the final holy life, the final consummation, and is foremost among devas and humans. So basically, Moggallāna just said, I only have one question: how to attain the end of suffering. So here, Moggallāna, a monk, has learned this. Nothing is fit to be clung to. When a monk has learned that nothing is fit to be clung to, he directly knows everything. By directly knowing everything, he fully comprehends everything. When he fully comprehends everything, whatever feeling he experiences, be it pleasant, painful, or neutral, he abides contemplating impermanence in these feelings, contemplating dispassion, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. When thus abiding, he does not cling to anything in the world. Without clinging, he is not agitated. And without agitation, he personally attains the complete extinction of defilements. He knows rebirth has ceased, the holy life has been lived, the task has been done, there is no more of this or that state. And after Moggallāna had received all these personal instructions from the master, he resumed his training with great ardor, fighting vigorously against the inner hindrances of the mind. And during his many years of ascetic life, he already had, to a great extent, suppressed sensual desire and ill will, the first and the second of the 5 hindrances. Now, with the help given by the Buddha, he fought against sloth and torpor and restlessness and worry, the third and 4th hindrances. By overcoming these hindrances, he was able to attain meditative states transcending the world of material form, which prepared the way for the penetrative knowledge of reality. He first attained and enjoyed the overwhelming bliss of the first jhana, a state of profound absorption and concentration, or more collectedness, And yet gradually some worldly thoughts arose and claimed his attention, dragging him down to the level of sensory consciousness. The Buddha came to his aid this time, however, not with detailed instructions as before, but with a brief indication that helped him to break through the impasse. The Exalted One warned him that he should not lightheartedly believe himself to be secure in the attainment of the first jhana, but should strive to master it and bring it fully under his control. So that's practicing the mastery of the jhanas. Basically, when we are practicing whatever states of mind that occur, there should be not we should remind ourselves not to cling to it. Whatever state that comes up, we should just note it, know that it is, if it arose, then it will also fall away. But here, the Buddha is also training Moggallāna to gain mastery of the jhanas as well. And when Moggallāna followed this advice, he became proficient in the first jhana and could no longer be disturbed by mundane thoughts. Having thus gained a firm footing in the first jhana, he next gained the second jhana, which is called the noble silence, because within this absorption, all discursive thought is silenced. Thus, in stages, he advanced to the 4th jhana, and from there he proceeded still further in the scale of concentration to the 4 formless or immaterial absorptions and the cessation of perception and feeling. Then he gained the signless concentration of mind, which is free from all the marks or signifies condition existent. But this attainment too was not final, for even here he developed a subtle attachment to his refined experience, an attachment which is still a delusive sign or mark superimposed on a high spiritual attainment of greatest purity. But aided by the master's instruction, he broke through these last most subtle fetters and attained to the final fruit, perfect liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom in all their fullness and depth. Thus, the Venerable Maha Moggallana had become an arhat. Like Sariputta, Moggallana was an arhat of the type called liberated in both ways. Although all arhats are identical in their perfect liberation from ignorance and suffering, they are distinguished in two types on the basis of their proficiency in concentration. Those who can attain the 8 deliverances, which include the 4 formless attainments and the attainment of cessation, are called liberated in both ways, liberated from material body by means of formless absorption, and from all defilements by the path of arhatship. Those who lack this mastery over the 8 deliverances but have destroyed all defilements through wisdom are called liberated by wisdom. Even more, Moggallana had not only mastered the successive planes of meditative concentration, not only mastered the jhanas, but had also explored the roads of psychic power, and thus had achieved facility in the modes of supernormal knowledge. In his own words, he was one of whom it could be declared, supported by the master, the disciple attained to greatness of the superknowledges. So Maha Moggallana is foremost in psychic ability, second only to the Buddha. And this entire development took place within a single week, so quite amazing. And these were indeed 7 days of tremendous internal transformation, packed with dramatic ordeals, struggles, and triumphs. The intensity and depth of Moggallana's determination during this short period must have been staggering. A person like him, endowed with such an active mind and such a wide range of natural gifts, would have had to make a truly valiant effort to cut through all the fetters binding him to this world of vast potentialities. Such an immensity of inner experience to have been compressed into one short week, the dimensions of space and time must have virtually contracted and dissolved. It is reported that on the occasion of his own enlightenment, the Buddha had recollected 91 aeons in the first watch of the night. Moggallana too, in perfecting his superknowledges, would have called up before his mind's eye many past aeons of world contraction and expansion, contraction and expansion of the universe. Here, notions of the immeasurable duration of time fail entirely. For an ordinary person immersed in the prison of the senses, 1 week is no more than 7 days. But for one who has pierced the veil of manifest phenomena and reached the subliminal depths of reality, infinities can burst through the very boundaries of finitude. And Moggallana later said that he attained arhatship by quick penetration, that is in 1 week, but his progress was difficult, requiring the helpful assistance of the master. Sariputta too attained arhatship by quick penetration in 2 weeks, but his progress was smooth. Moggallana had advanced to the goal more speedily than Sariputta because the Buddha directed and inspired him personally and intensively, and also because he had a lesser range to comprehend. Sariputta was superior to him in regard to the independence of his progress and also in the detailed scope of his knowledge. So in both instances, they both attained arhatship, although in slightly different terms, but the path is the same. They are how they attain arhatship, the stages to enlightenment is the same. It's just that the way that they went through was slightly different, but nevertheless was approximately around the same time. And as we had previously gone through before in this particular text, they had been practicing, both of them had been encountered each other in many, many previous lives. They had been practicing at least the virtues in many, 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 many lifetimes. In a previous life, they had each of them made the aspiration to become a future chief disciple of a future Buddha. This was many, 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 many aeons in the past. So although here in the text, it's easy to say that, okay, yes, so they practiced under Sanjaya, then they went out to the forest and wandered as an ascetic and practiced many years, came back to their hometown, and then met the Buddha, and suddenly in 1 week, in 2 weeks, they can become arhat. We should not forget the amount of work, not only in this particular lifetime, their final lifetime, but also all the previous lifetimes, the amount of work, the amount of effort that had been put in up till then should not be discounted as well, but it's very important as well. So I see a comment or a question. Yes, thank you, Pai. Paul, yes, that's right, Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. Thank you very much. Yes, my stroke of insight. Yes, I remember Dr. Jill Taylor correctly. Oh, I'm amazed at my own brain sometimes. Yes, I'm not sure it's this particular TED Talk. Let me just have a quick share. Give me 1 sec. Copy link. Yeah, ChatGPT is sometimes very useful. I'm not sure, Paul, what your prompt question to ChatGPT was, but that was quite spot on. Just give me 1 moment. Let me see. Sorry. Advertisements. We skip past the advertisements. Skip. Yes, I think it's this one that I saw the first 5 minutes or so. 1 moment. I'll see if I can share this. Yeah. Okay. Yep. It is this one. Okay. Let me share this for the benefit of everyone. Share my stroke of insights. Here we go. Share. And let me know if you can't hear the audio, yeah? Oh, let me try again, hang on. Stop share. Let's try again, share. My stroke of insight, share. Okay, here we go.
I grew up to study the brain because I have a brother who has been diagnosed with a brain disorder, schizophrenia. And as a sister and later as a scientist, I wanted to understand, why is it that I can take my dreams, I can connect them to my reality, and I can make my dreams come true? What is it about my brother's brain and his schizophrenia that he cannot connect his dreams to a common and shared reality, so they instead become delusion? So I dedicated my career to research into the severe mental illnesses, and I moved from my home state of Indiana to Boston, where I was working in the lab of Dr. Francine Bennis in the Harvard Department of Psychiatry. And in the lab, we were asking the question, what are the biological differences between the brains of individuals who would be diagnosed as normal control, as compared with the brains of individuals diagnosed with schizophrenia, schizoaffective, or bipolar disorder. So we were essentially mapping the microcircuitry of the brain, which cells are communicating with which cells, with which chemicals, and then in what quantities of those chemicals. So there was a lot of meaning in my life because I was performing this type of research during the day. But then in the evenings and on the weekends, I traveled as an advocate for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But on the morning of December 10, 1996, I woke up to discover that I had a brain disorder of my own. A blood vessel exploded in the left half of my brain. And in the course of 4 hours, I watched my brain completely deteriorate in its ability to process all information. On the morning of the hemorrhage, I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I essentially became an infant in a woman's body. If you've ever seen a human brain, it's obvious that the two hemispheres are completely separate from one another. And I have brought for you a real human brain. Thank you. So this is a real human brain. This is the front of the brain, the back of the brain with the spinal cord hanging down. And this is how it would be positioned inside of my head. And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another. For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor. The two hemispheres do communicate with one another through the corpus callosum, which is made up of some 300 million axonal fibers. But other than that, the two hemispheres are completely separate. Because they process information differently, each of our hemispheres think about different things, they care about different things, and dare I say, they have very different personalities. Excuse me. Thank you. It's been a joy.
Okay, so I won't share, I won't play the whole, video, but those of you who are interested, it is this video that I watched. I haven't finished watching it, but she has a book which my friend is reading, and it's called, give me 1 second. Here we go. Whole living brain. Sorry, whole brain living. Whole brain living. Let me see if I can find the link to Amazon. And there's also on Audible for those of you who like listening rather than reading text. I'll just pop it here. And this is the one that my friend is reading together with her book circle. So I'll just pop it here. And in this book, I'll just read a little bit. The summary of this book. So everything we think, feel, or do is dependent upon brain cells to perform that function. Before that, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor presents these 4 distinct modules of cells as 4 characters that make up who we are. So she's saying that the two hemispheres have both an emotional brain and a thinking brain. So that 4 distinct modules has 4 characters. Character 1, left thinking. Character 2, left emotion. Character 3, right emotion. Character 4, right thinking. So everything we think, feel, or do is dependent upon brain cells to perform that function. And since each of the 4 characters stems from specific groups of cells that feel unique inside of our body, they each display particular skills, feel specific emotions, or think reflective thoughts. In Whole Brain Living, Dr. Taylor shows us how to get acquainted with our four characters, observe how they show up in our daily life, and learn to identify and relate to them in others as well. And she introduces a practice called the brain huddle, a tool for bringing our four characters into conversation with one another so we can tap their respective strengths and choose which one to embody in any situation. So basically, I mean, we don't have to go into full detail and you don't have to read the book if you don't want to, but it's just basically understanding how, you know, the mind is just an activity of the brain, and different thoughts that come in really are just activities that the brain cells are performing at any one time. So if we realize this, hopefully it helps us in our practice to, again, coming back to the three characteristics of, you know, impersonality, unsatisfactoriness, and impermanence, right? Anicca, dukkha, anatta. And having that foundational understanding, anything negative or that has taken us away from our daily practice or whatever task that we are at that one time, hopefully this is just another tool, another way of basically letting go 6 hours and then just coming back, having that understanding that, oh, this is just an activity of the brain that's happening. And so we don't get too caught up with those stories that come up. Sorry, I think someone had a question. Did someone have a question? No? Okay. Yeah. Oh, good. All right, so we'll just leave it at there this week. Unless there are any questions or anyone has any thoughts or any comments they want to add?
Yeah, thank you very much, May. I particularly was interested in how the Supreme Buddha advised Venerable Moggallāna. That was very, very interesting. I have read part of those instructions, but not all of them. So thank you very much. Do you happen to know which page it was?
From the PDF? Let me see.
Yes, yes. If you can't find it, don't worry. But I would like to reread that again, May.
Yeah, sure. So the instructions to overcome sloth and torpor, is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Page 78.
Yeah, 78 is marked at the top,
Yeah.
but you use the Adobe Acrobat Reader, it'll come out as 110 here on the side.
110. 110. Oh, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
78 is because it doesn't take into account the preface and introductory part. Yeah.
Understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I've seen actually this in another book by Venerable S. Dhammika. I can't remember the title of the book, but it's just a collection of teachings by the Buddha. And yeah, this instructions more or less was also mentioned there. And the reason I remember it is because I was given a similar instruction in one of the retreats I attended many, many years ago. I think at that time I was experiencing some form of drowsiness or sloth and torpor. So during the interview, I asked what to do. And then the bhikkhuni at the time, at the retreat that I attended, she was like, "Oh, okay." Because I think because that particular book by Venerable S. Dhammika was readily available in the temple that we were having the retreat. So she was like, "Oh, just take this book and it's all here and go and try and see if it works." And I think I did try up till I think by the time I got to getting up from the seat and washing my face, it wasn't too bad. So usually we don't need to go all the way. But if we do need to go all the way to the lying down, that's actually an indication that the body really is physically tired and actually needs the rest. But the practice of being mindfully aware as we lie down is actually not as easy as one would think. So hopefully, yeah, but I remembered we were reminded that, sometimes if we feel that it's not just sloth and torpor, but really the body is tired, the body is giving us signs that it needs some rest, and we should give it some rest. Not too long, but you can set an alarm if you want, but at least give the body the chance to rest and recover a little bit. And then when, like said here, when it's rested well, we think it's rested well, we're given it, then we should get up and continue. So it's probably easier to do in a retreat setting or in a retreat environment. Maybe a little bit harder to do in our daily practice. But nevertheless, it's useful instructions.
Thank you very much.
No worries, all good. Okay. So if there are no further remarks or comments, then we can share some merit. I will share the screen. Hang on one moment. Let's see. Sharing. Okay, here we go. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Thank you to those who dialed in today. It was very nice to have you. I hope you found it interesting. We haven't quite decided who will speak next Sunday, so we'll see, but we will post an update as usual in the WhatsApp group. Okay. So I hope everyone has a good week ahead, has a good rest for the rest of the weekend, and many smiles and good health.
Thank you very much, Mei.
Thank you. Thanks for dialing in. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.